Well, hell, I could do it.
Okay, you're up, Commissioner.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are now in session. We don't have any indigent business. So Christie, you're up first.
I have before the board the lease documents associated with, Christie Plaza, sorry. I have before the board the lease documents associated with the sales agreement that was signed for the compactor for the landfill on Tuesday or Thursday. The only highlights are if we pay this through the full term, we will pay $192,000 in interest. But this is one of those pieces of equipment that we don't intend on keeping, that we continue to flip. So.
Okay. Questions?
No, Mr. Chair, we've discussed this, and I move that we authorize signature on the contract as presented.
I have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then this invoice goes with it for $194.
The invoice has already been processed. We have the check sitting downstairs. It was just part, so you can just line through that. It doesn't need signed.
Okay.
The landfill authorized the invoice because it's for their budget.
Okay. All right. Have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Buddy, you're up.
Good morning, Commission. Buddy Romero, Public Works Assistant Director.
And make it so we don't go into an executive session. Let's don't talk
Okay.
about names, please.
Okay. As per my letter, I'm requesting the exceptional placement per county policy for an equipment operator transferring from solid waste department to the road and bridge department. I brought the SRA from last week's meeting, and then we just crossed that out. And you did, I guess, for going to S1, not S2. That was a clerical error
Okay.
on our part. I guess our reasoning for doing so is he's ran several pieces of equipment. He's a CDL employee. He's plowed snow. We feel that he'd be a easy transfer over to our department which would require a little training. So,
Okay.
do you have any questions on that?
Like I told you, I like this to come before the board
Okay.
when we see these types of things, even internal transfers across, so that we have a conversation about
Okay.
justifications.
Okay.
And reading your letter, I had no question.
I didn't have any questions.
No, I appreciate the letter as well, so thank you.
Okay.
Okay, very
Thank you.
clear.
We can go ahead and take that salary approval form.
What effective date do you want to put on here?
On this letter, we put 3/27. So we'll go by the letter.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the salary rate approval form and the exceptional placement as presented.
Have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 That's just two on there. The second page. Third page.
All right. Anita. It's on the back page. Welcome, welcome.
Okay, well, I came over for the letter of cancellation because there is a large cancellation on it. However, I've already discussed it with Christy and Jennifer Clark. They're both aware of it. And we worked out some numbers and made sure that we were okay. It is a large cancellation because Board of Tax Appeals reversed our decision, our value, and modified it, and they did it by a large amount.
And that large amount is
It's
$4 million.
$4 million, yes.
So when you get these decisions back, do they have their reasoning behind?
Yes, they do. And if you would like to see that, I can send those over with that.
I would really like to see it on this one,
Okay.
actually, just,
Okay.
Do you want, I've got it in my email. Do
Can
want
you,
me to-
can either one of you just summarize what their general,
Well, this particular parcel is, it was sold at an auction, and so we felt like it was not an arm's length sale, so we went along, with our higher value and tried to back that. And they did come before the board, and then they weren't happy with that decision, so they took us to BTA. And for some reason, the BTA felt like they looked at it as an arm's length transaction type of thing, and so they went with the lower value. Yeah, and in the actual decision, it goes into more detail, but that's what it is, and when it's sold at an auction, I mean, it's really not an arm's length decision, or an arm's length sale, but that's kind of how they looked at it. And they had some other factors that they looked at it as well, and it's a retail business.
I've got the email brought up if you want me to
Yeah.
summarize. So they came across, said that on parcel ending 501, the assessed land value is $2,131,287, and the improvement value is $7,837,690, totaling $9,968,977. Appellant contends the correct value is $7.1 million, and then on parcel ending 402, the land is $871,600, improvements $3,863,891, totaling $4,735,491. The appellant contends the value should be $3,350,000. Parcel ending 602, the land value is $58,767. They think the value should be $50,000. There are three contiguous parcels built in 1985. Total of 6 retail spaces with a leasable square footage of 139,064 square feet. So it's one parcel. Appellants sold the property for $10,500,000. They run through how the offer went through. In addition, the purchase price, the appellant developed a pro forma income valuation model. A gross income of roughly $1.3 million was calculated using a 5% vacancy factor, and then operating expenses were removed. The result was a net income of $905,000. They go through capitalization rate, resulting in a value conclusion of $10,584,130, which was close to the sales price, so they kind of agreed with that. Our value is, again, the higher amount, the support of the current valuation. Respondent likewise developed an income model on subject's income and expense. Respondent utilized the same income figures as appellant, but no vacancy, which yielded a higher gross income of $1.4 million. For operating expenses, they took off $280,000, and whereas the appellant calculated expenses of $430,000. Respondent's analysis determined a value of $14,576,987, and then it goes to the conclusions. There's lots of lingo. Trying to see where they come to the. In addition to the income analysis, appellant pointed to subject's purchase of the 10.5. And it goes to the decision, which they concluded $10,584,130. So they used the calculations to work down to that dollar.
so question for you, why do you feel it was not an arm's length transaction?
Well, our appraiser just felt like it was, because it wasn't between it really wasn't a willing buyer. It was a willing buyer and a willing seller, but because it was an auction, it could have went higher, could have went lower.
But it didn't.
I know it
So
didn't.
so if it doesn't, then
Right.
does that not meet the definition?
Well, and I'm going to be honest here. We've never dealt with an auction sale before like this, and so this is new to us. And we're going to be looking at that differently and deeper next time if this occurs again, which very possibly could. I will say that this particular value that they came to will stay that way for 2024 as well, because it has to, because of BTA. It'll go that way for 2023, we'll do the cancellation, and then it'll stay there for 24. And then in 25, of course, we'll look at it again.
So in 2025, they used a couple different approaches to come to the value that they did. Will you use a similar thing to where
Oh,
you're at
yes.
there?
Yes,
or-
and we do. We look at all the approaches.
Okay.
And we are developing our commercial department better, and we're going to be getting, we're going to be start sending income and expense letters out to try to get some better values. We don't, one of the problems we have with commercial, and this is a good example of it, if we have, like, I think in 2023, during our time frame, we had 9 sales because they are not listed under the realtors don't share those values, which I get that. I totally understand that. But they're just not, we don't get sales on commercial. So we kind of don't have a lot of information to go by. And so, yeah.
So I can shed some light on that from the realtor's perspective. For our local MLS, we have a few commercial brokers that do run their properties through our local MLS, and those are the ones that Anita then sees. But we have probably the majority of the commercial brokerages that are not a member of our local MLS. So Anita doesn't get that data. She only gets the data that is shared from the Greater Pocatello Association of Realtors. And commercial is a very different beast than residential. It's who you know and national market more than it is local market, and residential is local.
So is it possible to contact some of those non-participating agents in the MLS and get some generic sales data from them, or do they like to just hold that close to the vest no matter what?
Typically, well, that would be up to their clients.
Okay.
But we could, and I could help Anita because I know most of them. We could reach out and ask them for participation and get some numbers. I doubt that they would want to share what they paid.
Yeah, and then as a follow-up to that, do you have any kind of just idea of what the commercial transactions are a year? Is it 5 a year, 10 a year, 1 or 2?
She gets about
We had
she gets
9.
about 95% of the residential, and she gets about probably about 10% of the commercial.
Okay.
So commercial is really hard, and
Right.
yeah, and we're addressing that this year because we have to. We always address it, but this year we're going to be making some major modifications and doing some different things,
Okay, thank you.
which will be taken up at BOE, I'm sure.
On these, where the BTA decisions come across, would you send that information to us?
Absolutely.
And all I'm saying is that helps us prepare for BOE,
Okay.
and so we know what the state's kind of looking at. And so, because it seems like here lately, we've had quite a few BTA.
We have. We should be almost done. We've got, I think there's one other one on there as well.
Yes.
I think we're only down to maybe 2 or 3 more that we haven't seen yet.
Okay.
But I will absolutely do that. I'll include
I
it in
think
my
that'd be a good
packet.
refresher for us to look them over and see, what they're looking at, because I'd just soon get it right the first time. I mean,
Yes.
and I believe that we have.
Oh, I do too.
I don't always agree with what the BTA does, and so I
They're
think that that's
interesting
an
to read.
argument that we have to have.
Even the ones that they affirm ours, they're very interesting to read and see why they came up to what they did.
And this is about $47,000 in tax dollars. So,
47,000?
Yes.
luckily, there's enough money in the second half payment that hasn't been made that it'll be absorbed, so we don't have to do any withholdings from districts. But after you either don't pretty much have to agree with this, but after you sign this cancellation, then my plan was to put together a letter to send to the affected districts, and I was just going to send it on behalf of Bannock County.
And explain that a little bit. So That's why I like if we're videoing this, that people on the outside that are listening, they get to hear the processes and know
Yes.
how it affects.
So because we set the levy based on this value, taxing districts are anticipating receiving this $47,000, which isn't just one district. It's going to be City of Pocatello, Bannock County Ambulance Abatement, Road and Bridge, School District 25. It's going to be those different districts. I don't have the breakdown, well, I have the breakdown, but not added by district. We're not going to receive that $47,000, so I'll just send a letter notifying each of those districts how much they won't be receiving. Honestly, in the scheme of things, $47,000 for those districts should not be significant. Overall, Anita tracks the sub-roll and occupancy, which we do not anticipate in setting the levy, which means any dollars that we receive for those will be above and beyond what we anticipate for property tax dollars. And Anita and I are going to get together, look at the dollars that we anticipated with the levy set versus the dollars adding the sub-roll and occupancy, and see how those net out. So every time you do a cancellation, we're taking money from the districts, but that sub-roll and occupancy is adding money to those districts. So we just want to make sure that those at least net to zero, if not additional dollars that were anticipated.
Just a simple question. On that 47,000, and let's just make the assumption there are 10 districts. So is that 10, is that 47 divided evenly
No.
between the 10 districts? It's
it'll be
based
by
on the
levy.
levy
Yes.
rate? Okay.
So like Pocatello on one of the parcels is about 18,000, on a different parcel 8,500, and on the last one $106.
Okay.
So those $3 added up will be what I let them know they're not going to receive.
Okay.
And so there's those two, well, city and school district, and then each fund within the county
Right.
will be affected that receives dollars.
Kyle, you're going to be short like $100.
No coffee one
A little bit
month.
more than that.
Sorry, $200.
$1,200.
$1,200, Kyle. 3 months of coffee.
But it is always a little bit stressing when we have to cancel something so large. It's not.
Which is why Anita has that spreadsheet, and we've
Yeah.
started tracking is for these purposes. We have had to notify, and it has affected bottom line before.
Yeah, and I immediately always reach out to Christy or Jennifer and make sure they're aware of what's going on as well.
Okay. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we accept the tax roll reduction as discussed and presented.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, YouTube. This next one I have says that it's for Gail Lim Construction. Phase 2 expansion liner, Bannock County.
I don't know if that was going to be Christie, and I was just going to be here for any questions.
Is that the surety bond?
Yeah, the surety. I just seen that was on there, so I thought I'd wait to see if you had any questions on it. Not, there was two different numbers. I talked with the engineer and got that straightened out. The one that you have to sign is the correct number.
The correct one, okay, that was
Yeah.
part of it there, because I
Yeah,
have two
just-
sheets here and
Yeah,
they
I
don't
wasn't
match.
sure. Normally I think I would fill that out, but I didn't have the information to fill it out, so.
Yeah, so, I guess Shanda had it and I was asking questions about it. And like I told her, usually I go to our project manager, which would be the engineering firm, to get their numbers and then kind of base off of that. They were in a conference, so I just was looking through our records and trying to pull them numbers, and from their final statement, it kind of showed that way. But they kind of messed up on the final statement and sent me that and the numbers.
So in theory, what should happen is the commission signs all contracts. Change orders should also be signed by the commission. That it's how it used to be. I'm not sure if there was ever a change that was made. But that's why our office should have all this information, because we can track all contracts. So I should have the original contract, I should have a copy of the change order, which would then give me the information that was asked on here. And then we should know when a project's been completed, so that I know we're not spending any more monies. So I would prefer if our office fills this out in the future, but again, we would need all of this information to be able to fill it out, which we did not in this case.
Okay, yeah. One of the papers says it come from, numbers from Road and Bridge, and the other one says numbers from engineer,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So in this case, the best numbers came from the engineer.
The engineer.
But I didn't feel like it was something that we should sign, because this is essentially, I think, releasing a surety bond,
Okay,
which
yeah.
we should have on the record.
Well, in this amount, well, yes,
And-
it needs to come before
Yeah,
us.
and having the board sign it, we've got everything on the record, so that we have a paper trail of everything.
So just to make sure, we're citing the release of the surety bond for $5.089 million, is that correct?
It's 4.9,
Or is it the 4.9?
So it's this
the
one.
first
The
page.
contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's the one that's typed on, so it's the 4.992.
But I
Yes.
think the contract amount was for the 5 million.
Original contract price is
Yes.
5.1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that change order was, when we went into it, there was two different types of liner that we could use. Or we had spec'd, and we had to wait for approval from DEQ on the one that we could be able to use it, and so that's where that money savings came from.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the surety bond release in the amount of $4.992 million as presented to Gale Lynn Construction.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Christie.
All right. Looks like the last item on this agenda for this meeting is minutes for March 19th.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the minutes for March 19th.
Have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.